Hi, everybody. This is SAAD. As some of you may know, I have been placed on a 75 exposures per day of the Gillette ad as a means of decreasing my toxic masculinity to acceptable levels. And it's been now several weeks that I've been on this regimen, and I definitely feel, a lot more feminine, a lot more gentle. I don't have the urges to go out, look for puppies, decapitate them, and rape the corpseless bodies anymore. So I highly recommend for any of you who are suffering from toxic masculinity to watch the Gillette ad, because until the Gillette ad taught men how to behave in a kinder way, we were all floundering in a debauchery of rapes and killings. But the good news is that because of my 75 daily exposures to the Gillette ad, and hence with sort of a renewed thrust of sensitivity, and being the professor of marketing that I am, I've identified a niche in the marketplace, a unfilled niche that I think might compel me to new heights of wealth. As many of you know, positive erotica is something that radical feminists contrast with hardcore pornography. The idea being that positive erotica is what men should be watching if they weren't so disgustingly toxic. They wouldn't be focused on, immediate sex, hardcore sex, focusing on body parts, all that visual imagery. Instead, it would be, the pornography would be just two people staring at each other coyly, just smiling, caressing each other's faces, while, listening to some songs by, I think, Lisa Loeb. And that's the way you would ultimately achieve sexual release, through positive erotica. You don't focus on genitalia. You don't focus on the vulgarity of body parts. You learn to appreciate sort of foreplay of sex, and then that way you can certainly reduce your toxicity. And so, given that there's so few examples of positive erotica that is targeting either heterosexual men or homosexual men. By the way, homosexual men who watch hardcore pornography seem to also be very uninterested in positive erotica. Usually, gay sex in movies, as far as I've been told, they don't usually sit around on a gondola listening to Pavarotti while coyly looking at each other's eyes. They seem to get down to business pretty quickly, very much like in heterosexual sexuality. So it seems like there might be something inherent to male sexuality that might make them visually aroused. But because of my exposure to Gillette ads, I now know that this is completely patriarchal toxicity. And so I'm very happy to report that, given that I've identified this niche, this untapped niche, I will be developing a new line, number one, of romance novels. And the romance novels will be, the male protagonist won't be these muscular, risk taker, fight alligators on my six pack type of guys, which is basically the male archetype in every romance novel that's ever been written. That's very, very toxic. That's teaching women that this type of, masculinity is to be desired. The new males they'll be whiny, they'll cry a lot, they'll do logarithmic calculations on their conspicuously visible calculators. They'll have high-pitched nasal voices. They'll have a bit of an hourglass figure, so their fat deposits will be more similar to that of women, rendering them less toxic. So that's one line that I'm developing, a new line of romance novels imbued with less toxic males. And then I'm also looking to develop a line of positive erotica pornography in line with what one should expect in a world where men are no longer visually stimulated sexually, because that we know is something that is toxic and we need to get rid of it. True sexuality is just two people coyly staring at each other while Barry White plays in the background, and then you leave the rest to your imagination. So there you have it, folks. A couple of new lines coming out. I hope that you will purchase these wonderful new products, because remember, good marketers ignore human nature and instead adhere to idiotic ideology in developing successful commercial products. Cheers, everybody.